Hello everyone and welcome back. So in this video we're continuing from where we left off and we're continuing to work on our game. So fortunately for us, we've actually learned a lot of the topics we need to know to be able to kind of complete this game and make it a lot more interesting and fun to play. But there is a few more things we're going to learn just at the beginning of this and kind of apply them in, but it'll be a lot more working on the project than it will be actually learning the theoretical concepts. If you've not seen the previous two videos in this series, please do go check those out first, as that's kind of a prerequisite for this. With that being said, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of recap us from the last day and just kind of run this program and see what we actually have so far so we know where we're going from here. So welcome to my first game. What is your name? My name is Tim. What is your age? 19. Hello, Tim. You are 19 years old. You're old enough to play. Do you want to play? Let's type yes, like that. And boom, it says let's play. Awesome. Now I just want to show you a case that we may not have considered yet. So if I do Tim, 19, and do you want to play? Now what happens if I do something like this? So Y, capital E, S. Well, I'll give you guys an opportunity to take a look at it. If we have our condition here, right? So we say wants to play equals input, do you want to play? And then we say if wants to play equals yes, let's play. So do we think when I type Y with a capital E and then S that this is going to work? Well, no, it's not. So if I do this, it actually doesn't, this if statement is not true. This condition is not true, and therefore this doesn't run. So how can I actually go about and fix that? Well, this is the first thing that I wanted to show you and that I guarantee you guys will find very useful for the rest of this kind of game and anything in the future. There is this method, and it's called a method. It's not that important. You don't have to understand what that means, called .lower. So it actually looks like this, .lower, and I'm typing it in the correct place here. But what this does is it takes any string and immediately converts it into lowercases. So all lowercases. It takes any letters it has and just puts it to lowercase. So this is really useful because what we can do is we can take the input that we typed in, immediately convert it all into lowercases, and now when we want to check for equality, it doesn't matter what capitalization we used in the string, it will still be true because it'll just automatically go to lowercase. So we could type capital E and that will still, this condition will be true and we'll still do let's play. So in fact, let me show you. So notice I just put .lower here. And guess what? There's actually another method called .upper that we could use as well. And .upper will make it all uppercase. So if we wanted to do this and make this all uppercase and then make this .upper, same thing, right? So I'm hoping this is making sense, but essentially whatever you're going to compare here is going to have to be in all lowercase or all uppercase, and that's going to correspond to whether you use .lower or .upper. All right, so let's run this now and let's see what we get. So what is your name? Tim. What is your age? 19. Do you want to play? Y-E-S. Okay, so we have a capital Y and a capital S, and let's play. That still works fine. So that's cool. I think that's an important method to know. That's pretty quick, so I just wanted to show that to you guys. And now let's actually start building a game. Let's start making something cool, and then we'll implement like maybe a health or some other interesting things into our game that I didn't have in the demo game. So the first thing we want to do is actually I'm going to add an else statement here, and I'm just going to print see ya, ... So if they don't want to play, we'll simply tell them, goodbye, like see you later. And then inside of here, if they want to play, so notice I'm nesting all these things, right? Like there's an if and else inside of another if statement. And that's totally fine because all the if statement says is, well, if this is true, do whatever is indented, and here we are. And then inside here, this if statement says, if this is true, do whatever's indented, right? So we go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do in here now is I'm going to ask another question, and this will be the first decision that we want to make. So I don't know what I want to make it. I think I'm going to go with the classic, do you want to go left or right, just as our first kind of path. But you guys can make this whatever you want, and feel free at this point to kind of change around some of the stuff that I'm doing and make it your own so long as you understand what's happening. So I'm going to say left underscore or underscore right equals input first choice ... left or right. Now it might be a good idea in your game to put brackets at the end of your answer and just put inside of the brackets what the user should type. So left or right, because technically, right, they might not know, like they might type I want to go left or I want to go right. So it might be a good idea to just put brackets inside of the prompt just so they kind of know what options they have, like what they can actually type, right? And then what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to check if left underscore or underscore right is equal to left. This will be my correct decision if I go left. Then what we'll do is we'll print something or we'll do something. Otherwise, we'll just print out to the screen You fell down and lost. ... You can see I'm not super creative when it comes to making these games, but the idea is I'm just trying to show you how the paths work. So this is like if they lose, so if they decide to go right or they type anything other than left, then we'll print out you fell down and lost. Otherwise, if they go left, then what I'll ask them is another question. So say, okay, if they go left, they're going the right direction. So let's ask them another question. Awesome. And in fact, inside of else, I don't even have to make them lose. I could ask them another question in here too, right? We can make it as confusing, as complicated as we want, and make it really hard for the user to figure out what way they're kind of going, so they have to play the game a bunch of times. So anyways, let's go here inside of left. And let's say, I'm just going to put ANS, that's short form for answer. That's what I usually end up doing as we get longer and longer rather than making these variable names. But I'm going to say ANS equals input. Nice. You follow the path and reach a lake, ... Do you swim across or go around, ? And then inside of here, I'm going to put across as the answer, right? Is that across? I don't think you need two C's, so across or around, just telling them what they can type in, right? And now I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit just so we can read. Oh, that's better, okay. And now inside of here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check what their answer was, right? So I'm gonna say if ANS is equal to, and maybe we'll say that going across was the correct answer. Actually, let's say going around was the correct answer. So if ANS equals around, then we'll do something. And then we'll say elif, so I'm actually gonna switch it up here just to show you something else. Elif, elif ANS equals across, and then else. So the reason I've done this is because what I actually want to do right now is I want to make it so that if they type across or they type around, both options are correct. They can go both ways, but both ways will lead them to different types of decisions, right? So they'll get asked now different questions inside of here. But if they don't type around or across, right, then I want them to lose. So I'm just gonna go down here and say print you lost. Again, I don't have really good lose messages, but that's totally fine. And then inside of here in around, what I'm actually gonna say is that one of these options is better than the other. So here is where I'm going to implement something that I hope is you guys will appreciate, because it is a little bit more complicated, but I want to show you how we can do something like this. If they decide to go across the lake, I'm going to kind of make up a story and say they got bit by something and they lose health. And maybe we'll put something inside of here that checks, what their health is. So if their health goes lower than 0, then they lose, right? Then they lose the game completely. I think that'll be interesting to do. So let's do something like that. So if I want to keep track of health, right? And maybe we set them off with like default health of 1 or default health of 10 or something, and they lose health, we'll need a variable to store their health, and then we'll need to subtract from that variable. So what I'm going to do is on line 7, I'm going to make a variable called health. I'm going to set that equal to 10. So they could technically have 10 health, and we'll tell them how much health they start with and how much health they lose. So maybe to start, we'll print out you are starting with, and then in this case, comma, the number, and then comma, health. So you are starting with 10 health, that'll print out 10. The reason I put health here instead of 10 is because if I change this number, maybe I change it later to 15, 20, something like that, I want this to automatically update. I don't want to have to rewrite the number 2 times. It's better just to have it stored in one place. So that's why I've done that. So we've defined they have a health. And we'll say if ANS equals around, then, whatever. If ANS equals across, then we'll print something else. In fact, actually, what we can do is something cool here. And I'm going to get rid of the else and just change this a bit. So I'm going to say print. And inside of here, I'm going to put you went around and reached the other side of the lake. And then here I'll print you managed to get across, but were bit by a fish. I don't know, let's just say that. You were bit by a fish and lost 5 health. So I'm going to tell them that they lost 5 health here. And then what I'm going to do is, because they lost health, and I'll put some periods here, is I will say health minus equals 5. So we'll just, remove 5 health from their health. So now they only have 5 health. And now what we can do down here is we can ask them another question, right? And we can keep going. And in fact, what I'll do now is I'll pause and we'll run this just to see where we're at right now. And then I'll just kind of keep going and just coding out my version of the game, just showing you guys some different cool things that we can do. And hopefully you guys take this upon yourself to make your own cool game, right? And change the paths and decisions. And this will be like really good template for you to figure out what to do. So let's run this and let's go. What is your name? So my name is Tim. I'm 19. Hello, Tim. You're 19 years old. You're starting with 10 health. You're old enough to play. Do you want to play? So actually, maybe I should put the health somewhere else. So this is great. So I tested it. I realized something was wrong. So now I only want to tell them how much health they have, right? If they're older than 18. So in fact, let's get rid of this, telling them what they are. I don't need that anymore. And then after we ask them, do you want to play? We'll print out, you're starting with 10 health. Let's play. And we can leave the health defined up here. Doesn't matter where we have it, but we'll just put it here so that we can access it throughout all of the stuff down here. Great. So let's run this now. And let's zoom in a bit. It says, what is your name? Tim. What is your age? 19. You're old enough to play. Do you want to play? Yes. You're starting with 10 health. Let's play. First choice, left or right. So where should we go? Let's go left. Nice. You follow the path and reach a lake. Do you want to swim across or go around? Let's go across. And it says you managed to get across, but you were bit by a fish and lost 5 health. So you can see that the game is actually working, right? And we'll run it one more time just to test out another path. So Tim, 19, you're old enough to play. Do you want to play? Yes. First choice, left or right. Let's go right. You fell down and lost. Boom. So the game is functioning. Okay, so let's keep going and let's add some more stuff into this. So health minus equals 5. So now they're at 5 health. Now what I'm going to do here is we'll have to do something to check if they are at lower than 0 health, right? So they'll be at some point where they could potentially lose all their health. And if they're at lower than 0 health or they're at 0 health, then we'll have to tell them that they lost. So that's going to be interesting to do actually. But first, let's just ask another question. So let's say ANS equals input. And inside here, what do we want them to do next? Maybe I'll tell them that I'm going to take an example from my previous game. I'll say you see a river and you see a house. Do you go towards the river or do you follow the house, right? Or other way around. Do you go towards the house or do you follow the river? Okay. You notice a house and a river. Which do you go to? And then again, I'll give them what they need to type in here just to make it easy. So we'll say river / house. And make sure we add a space here in between the question mark and the end of the quote, just so there's a space when they're actually typing it in. And now let's check if ANS equals, in this case, house, then we'll do something. Else we'll do something else. So what I'm actually going to say here, this will be kind of an interesting little twist to this game I wasn't even thinking about adding, is if they decide to go to the river, we'll just tell them that they fell in the river and they lost, okay? And then if they go towards the house, we'll tell them that they went towards the house, but they lost 5 health because the guy at the house hit them or something. I don't know. I'm trying not to be too violent in these answers. But the idea being that I want to make it so that they can get past this, but if they decide to go across, it will actually end up being the wrong decision because they lose 5 health, right? And then down here, they'll lose another 5, so they'll lose the game. I hope that makes sense, but you'll see as I start coding it. So if ANS equals house, then what we'll say is we'll say print, you go to the house, and are greeted, by the owner, ... He doesn't like you and you lose 5 health. Why not? All right, we'll just go with that. We don't need any more deeper explanations. And then we'll say health minus equals 5. So we're removing 5 health. Again, that's equivalent to health equals health minus 5. So whatever the value of health is, we'll subtract 5 from it. The reason I wouldn't just set health to 5 or I wouldn't just set it to 0 is because we don't know if they lost 5 health above here. So we need to make sure we just subtract that value. And then else, we'll print down here, you fell in the river and lost, ... Okay, so now what we'll do after this, right? So you can kind of see the way that I'm, actually, let's see here, managed to get across. So now actually inside of this if statement, sorry, I'm just trying to think of what we're actually going to do here. On line 30, I'm going to check if their health is lower than 0. So if they have lower than 0 health, because this will be the first point in the game where they could potentially be at 0 health if they lost it twice, then we'll tell them that they lost. Otherwise, we'll keep going, right? And then maybe we'll wrap up the game with one more path or something. So we'll say if health is less than or equal to 0, then what we'll do is we'll print you now have 0 health, and we don't need a comma, and you lose the game, ... All right, so there we go. You lost the game. Actually, we'll just do, and you lost the game. All right, so if their health is lower than 0, they lose. Otherwise, then inside of here, we'll say print you have survived. ... You win. I don't know. We'll just say that they win at that point, and I'll show you how we can add some more cool things too. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up. Let's test this game a few times and make sure that everything's working fine. And then we'll add anything we need to. So what is your name? Tim. Let's actually test one. If I go like 14, you're not allowed to play. Okay, so let's go again. Tim, 19. Yes. First choice, left or right. Let's go left. Nice. You follow the path and reach a lake. Do you swim across or go around? Let's go across. You managed to get across, but you were bit by a fish and lost 5 health. You notice a house and a river. Which do you go to? The river or the house? Let's go to the river. And you fell in the river and lost. Okay, let's try a few more paths. Just want to make sure this works. But I hope you guys understand the point of this, right? Is to go down like all these different branching paths. And, you know, if you make a bad decision at the beginning, you're going to have to keep going down all the routes until you realize that, oh, no, I should have gone right instead of left, right? So you can make these really intricate. And a lot of people that I've taught to do this before have made really cool games. They're like hundreds of lines of code that take you a really long time to actually figure out. So I think it's pretty interesting. Okay, but first choice, left or right? Let's go left. Nice, you follow the path and reach a lake. Do you swim across or go around? Let's actually go across and let's test out this health stuff. So we go across, and then it says you notice a house and a river. So let's go to the house. It says you go to the house and you are greeted. Oops, I should probably spell that right, by the owner. He doesn't like you and you lose 5 health. You now have 0 health and you lost the game, right? So you didn't technically lose because you went to the what is it? Because you went to the house. It's just you lost because you lost 5 health, right? And now I'll show you the example where if we don't lose 5 health at the first step, we can actually survive by going to the house. So what is your name? Tim. What is your age? 19. Do you want to play? Yes. Let's play first choice, left or right. So let's go left. Let's say nice, you follow. Let's go around this time. You went around and reach the other side of the lake. You notice a house and river. Which do you go to? Let's go to the house. And you go to the health and you're greeted by the owner. He doesn't like you and you lose 5 health. You have survived. You win. So even though we lost 5 health, we still won because in the previous step, we didn't lose 5 health. So I hope that me showing you the health thing gave you some ideas for some stuff that you can do. What you also can do is you can do something like let the user pick a weapon or something, right? So a cool example, and I'll just talk about some kind of add-ons now because we're kind of wrapping up the video anyways. You could do something like you can start by asking them what weapon you want. So you could say, you know, weapon equals input pick a weapon question mark, or pick a weapon colon, and then your options could be something like sword, I don't know, maybe like a baton. I'm trying not to be too violent, and I don't know, let's go something like taser, right? So you can tell them to pick one of these weapons, and then based on the weapon they pick, you can say, oh, well, if they have this weapon, then they're able to get past this obstacle. If they don't have this weapon, then they can't. So what you would do if you wanted to check something like that is you'd say if weapon equals whatever it equals, and if it equals that, then boom, they're good to go, right? And they can continue on. Now, the last thing I'll show you, because we have 1 minute left, kind of before I'm planning on wrapping this up, is how you can actually check multiple things on the same line. Now, I'm just going to kind of introduce this to you guys, because then you can kind of look at it yourself. It's pretty easy. There's these things called and or. Now, and or are ways that we can chain conditions together. I'm not going to explain them in depth, but if you do something like true or false, the result of this is true. The reason this is true is because when you have an or, this pretty much says, look at the left side, look at the right side. If one of them are true, the whole thing is true. So if you go ahead and do something like, you know, x, let's say like 5 equals 5, 7 equals 8, then this would be true, right? Because this condition is true, this condition is false. So since one of them is true, the whole thing is true. Now, contrasting that with and. So when you do and, what this does is it checks if both of the things on the left and right hand side are true. If they are, the whole thing is true. If they're not, it's false. So in this case, this would be false because one of them is false. But if I change this to be like 7 = 7, then this is true. So you can use this and or to actually chain conditions together. So you could check like inside of here, if left or right and, you know, weapon equals whatever, you can do something like that. Oops, so I put this in the wrong. If left or right equals left, oops, and weapon equals whatever it equals right inside of here, then this whole thing will work. So you can check if this whole condition is true or false and then execute an if statement based on that. So with that being said, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to zoom out here so you guys can have a look at all of the code at once. I understand this maybe isn't mobile friendly, but at least now you can kind of see what we've actually created. And I really hope that throughout this series, you guys have learned something about Python. You've learned kind of the basics of the language, an if and an else, and I've given you enough knowledge that you now feel a little bit confident to go out there and make some kind of cool game. I will say there's a ton more stuff you can do with this. There's a lot more things to learn. But again, the focus of this series was around building a project, and I really hope that this helped you do that. So with that being said, that has been it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in another YouTube video.